Welcome to the Narrative Mindset Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, I would appreciate it if you went back and viewed previous episodes when you get time. So, morning, fellow listeners. I really appreciate you all tuning in. Today is, was the fourth episode on the rebirth through creativity thing I got going on. Well, I got off this morning to a pretty good start, and I was feeling pretty good. I'm over my cold somewhat, but I'm still in the kind of after effects, and I've been working with my podcast sound, trying to get it tuned in the way I want it. So I got up and I was kind of fed up because I had been working on it for weeks and weeks now. I mean, the sound is pretty good, so I'm good with it here where I'm at. But, I've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth trying to figure out what sound works best. With these settings, it can be pretty meticulous, especially when you're trying to find a particular sound that you're trying to get to. And so, I do apologize because all of my episodes are all over the place, and I'm to a point now where I just set it where it's at right now, and I'm kind of done fooling with it for a while. And from what I can hear, it sounds pretty good. If not, let me know. Let me know if you find an episode that you say, well, I kind of like that sound. Let me know. Or if you want to hear it a different way, I'm not sure, what listeners are into different voices, but I can do different voices. I can do, whatever way that listeners would like it. And also, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments as to what you want to hear and things of that nature. Because like I said, this is a rebirth to creativity. So I'm tapping into my creativity, my thinking, and trying to force myself to think up episodes and ideas and stories and things of that nature. And you also want to mention, while I'm on that subject, a lot of people, they post once every week. I post every day. So for a quick minute, just think about it. I get up at 2:30. I'm doing my thing, whatever. Go do my ride share. While I'm doing my ride share, I'm on my phone and I'm, in, I think it's Word. So I'm thinking of stuff and I'm trying to think up an episode, and I'm, trying to get a few words in between passengers. And so I'll have an episode by the time I get home. I fix my lunch and everything, get that ready. I do half hour of biking right here in my living room, shower, podcast, eat, TV, back to bed. So I can get up and do it all over again the next day. Not that much, right? Anybody can do it. You just gotta just put your mind to it. That's it. I'm huge at mind over matter, and I'm real big at people betting me that I can't do something. I stopped smoking because a female had bet me that I couldn't that I couldn't lose weight. So it was like, what? Dude, are you kidding me? So I think I had 2 cigarettes left, and I had only been smoking for probably 2 years, maybe. And while I'm at it, that was like the hardest thing to quit. But I had like 2 cigarettes left, and I smoked those 2 cigarettes, and I quit afterwards. So I mean, that was something. But I only did it because I wanted to prove to her that I can do anything I want to do as long as you put your mind to it. And that was interesting. I did it with my recent turnaround in weight loss also. Because I know what I'm eating, when I'm going to gain weight, all that kind of stuff. So I was watching this movie called The 100. And the movie is about kids coming back to Earth in the future because, I mean, like we all figured, they finally nuked the Earth for whatever reason, so nobody can live here for a while. So the kids go live out in space. And they're pretty much, it's their parents that go live in space and the kids are born. That's what it is. And they're born in space, so they really know nothing about Earth pretty much. So if you're following me, the Earth gets nuked, then we'll say, I go in space, me and my wife, then we have a child. That child is born in space, knows nothing about Earth, only dreams about Earth. So in the movie, they're making it seem like since they're born in space and Earth and space has a higher radiation. So then when they come here, they are, I guess you would say, they're immune to the radiation on Earth. So then they come back to Earth, and the whole thing is they kind of, when they get here, there's other people here, and it's based around in Washington, I believe that's where the Lincoln Memorial is. I've never been there, but it's based around that. So it's a pretty good movie. I've watched it a couple times or whatever. Definitely a good movie. I didn't watch it when it was on TV. That's just me. I don't know why. I'm not sure. It must not have caught my interest when it was on TV or whatever. So I fixed my breakfast and I learned my lesson about, the cold and everything. So this morning I got up and I got my coat, I got my hoodie, got my gloves on. I'm ready to go out there and face the cold. So I get all my stuff together and I head out. And I go throw away some trash. And since I'm out back, I said, well, since I'm back here because my Mustang sits out back, because I pulled it out back instead of up front, because they have these huge parking spaces in this one area. And I love parking there because they're like a car and a half for one parking space. So excellent place. So I have a 2021 Mustang and I barely drive it. Like, I drive it around the block once a week. So, I mean, go figure that one out. But I hit my remote start and I was really surprised for a car that I don't drive and we had a snowstorm, I thought that the thing wasn't going to start because I was thinking, okay, the battery will be dead. But unfortunately, it starts right up, and I was really surprised that it did. Being so cold, and we got some snow last night, and so I started it and I let it run, and I went up front to my other car, my I call it my moneymaker, my 2015 Prius that I use for a ride share. I got that started and I got all the snow brushed off, got it cleaned up, and then I drove that back in the back to the Mustang, still running, and I got the snow cleaned off of that, and I let it run until it just cut off, because when you start it with the remote, it'll run for about 5 minutes, and but I got that done, and I surprised if you'd be really surprised. I took off all the layers of coats and threw them in my trunk, and because I hate wearing hats and coats and all that kind of stuff, but I did keep a hat on. So when I get out of my car, I definitely put that hat on. I got my hoodie on because I don't want to be, in the house this next weekend with another cold. And I'm in my car all day, so I'm just sweating and all kinds of stuff. But it was probably mostly my own fault, too. I don't really blame anybody, but I spent this morning it was kind of rough, but I got off and running to a normal day. It's, like I said, we did have a little bit of snow, and there was a little bit of ice on the back roads, not that much. But I mean, I wanted to say it didn't really feel like Thanksgiving. I mean, Thanksgiving seems like we just, I don't know, it seems like we just brushed past it. It's like, did we really have a Thanksgiving, or was that, something else that we had? Because it really wasn't, it didn't feel like Thanksgiving. So that was definitely different, And I think it was because of the government shutdown and everything, and the lack of income for some employees also. So that was a little bit different. But I mean, it just felt like Thanksgiving was like a blur, and like it really didn't happen unless you're, well off. You have a big family, that gets along and knows how to act around each other, which is extremely uncommon because family can sometimes be envious, jealous, or just plain people that want to play in your face sometimes. I got a family member like that myself. I had to kind of, make a decision to love her from afar, if you know what I mean. And some family members feel that you're their entertainment. And I think that's what a lot of people get wrong. I had a female tell me, my ex-wife, she told me, she said, well, I'm not your entertainment. And to be honest, I didn't understand it when she told me. I really didn't. I mean, as men, we catch on sometimes later in life for some reason. But when I did the work on myself and I realized that I'm responsible for, my own happiness, I have to be happy in order for someone else that I'm with to be happy, or the people I'm around to be happy. That's when I understood it. That's when it all just came flooding in, like, oh, okay, now I get, what she was talking about. Because at first I was like, like a deer stuck in the headlights. What do you mean? You're not my entertainment, and I didn't really understand that. But I had to realize that about a lot of my family because I would go around them and get these bad attitudes and bad kids, and people got their nose turned up, and and I kind of felt like I was the one that was being laughed at. So I had to make a decision and love some of them from afar because it was better for my happiness to love them from afar than to continuously be around that type of environment. And and at times you feel left out somewhat, and you feel like you're hurting them in a way, but you're not. And that's what people will try to uh, make you feel bad, because they'll say you're thinking way too much about everybody except yourself. And in loving yourself, you put yourself first. And that's the starting point to self healing. Because around that, you start to realize what's good for your peace, your contentment, and etc. And when you find peace, you do whatever you have to do to maintain it because being in a peaceful place is so important to mental health because being around negativity, bad people, people who aren't in a good place in life, people who are jealous of you, and people who just aren't peaceful are bad for you. It's bad for your peace. You just don't realize it. So I decided to travel the other day to my hometown. I went because I thought I was missing something. Because for the growth, you move on and you start traveling in different directions. And you feel that you're missing something back from your original destination. So I went back to town and I happened to look at the city and see what changed. And they've done a few things downtown. They kind of repurposed the whole thing to a destination for travelers and they have a lot of bars and little corner shops downtown. So I happened to run into a friend of mine that I had known since junior high school. I met him when we moved from the west side to the north side of town. And along with other friends in the neighborhood who we met through a gathering of people who were walking to school together because if you stayed within a mile of the school, there was no school bus for you. You had to walk. So we walked up the street and there was a trail that led right to the school. So what I got to know, and I met up with him and a few other friends, and we went downtown, went to the bar, had a few drinks, and we were chit-chatting and reminiscing on old times. When we were growing up in school, and they asked me why did I come back to town, and I told them that I thought I was missing something, and I wanted to regroup with whatever friends that were around and see the town a little bit. And they asked me, they said, "Well, you live in a bustling city, and there's tons to do." And I said, "Yeah, but the city is a little bit different than our hometown." And they asked me, "Well, how so?" I said, "Well, the city is a lot more dangerous. The city is a lot more busy. The city is a lot more family oriented." We had a couple more drinks. And after that, we took a walk around town and visited some of the spots that we frequented as kids, like the inner city projects, which were a lot of fun and they weren't really dangerous to us. And we were kids, and a couple of the corner stores there that we're seeing a lot. We've seen a lot happening. We spent a little bit of time reminiscing and fellowshipping, And it felt good to come to town and hang out with some good friends. We said our goodbyes and I went back to my hometown. But the thing I think about is, how many real friends do you have growing up? And how many are there? How many are there because uh, how many are there because they can get something from you? Because in life, you have like maybe one or two friends, and as your career grows, you and those friends, you go in different directions and different lifehoods and things of that nature. And you really don't get a chance to see true friends that often because life pretty much takes over. And that's part of growing up. And that is also part of mental health because that process can be very lonely at times. And that's part of, I think that's a huge part of life, and it's something that it's just life, and it's unfortunate that life doesn't happen the way you want it to happen because I guess you would love for you and all of your friends to, for everybody to be doing good. I'd love to have a what's the name of that black movie? I forget the name of it, but it was all the guys were doing good, you know, getting together, whatever. It was a really good movie. But as we all know, it's a movie, not real life. So in today's episode, I'm going to be reading a short story. The story is called Life Happens. So I am going to shut my mouth, and here we go. The window of my mind was fogged, not with steam or breath, but with the dizzying motion of time accelerating. I was Gerald, born and raised in the kind of honest, beer brewing, paper making town that Kalamazoo, Michigan is. A place where the speed limit is usually set by comfort, not necessity. I had always been ambitious. It wasn't a sudden burst of energy. It was a low, constant hum, like the ballast of a ship designed for deep water, where my friends, Mike and Sam, saw a decent paycheck and a steady life as the finish line. I saw it as the starting pistol. I worked the side hustles, took the night classes, and stayed up reading books on investing while they were debating the merits of the latest local craft beer. This divergence, this growing chasm between my velocity and theirs, was the subject of my current, strange internal landscape. I found myself standing on a colossal, dimly lit train platform. It was silent, vast, stretching into an unseen fog that smelled faintly of autumn leaves and wet asphalt. The true smell of Michigan in October. This wasn't a physical place. It was the waiting room of my consciousness. The train waiting before me was sleek and powerful, its black metal shell reflecting the soft, yellow illuminating of the platform lamps. This was the momentum, the vehicle of my future, entirely dependent on the fuel of my hard work. Mike and Sam were there, sitting comfortably on a wooden bench near a vending machine that sold classic pop and outdated bags of chips. They weren't angry. They were just settled. They were wearing the same relaxed faces they wore every Saturday afternoon when we'd shoot the breeze down by the Kalamazoo River. "You really gonna take that monstrosity, G?" Mike asked, nodding toward the train, his voice echoing slightly in the vastness of the terminal. "It's time, fellas," I replied, pulling my small, efficient suitcase, labeled aspiration, closer to my foot. I've got to see what's down the line. This platform is nice, but I need movement. Sam stretched, yawning wide. Movement is overrated, man. Did you know the local brewery is hiring for a manager? Steady hours, good benefits. You could be set. I felt the familiar, heavy sigh in my chest. The one that had nothing to do with disappointment in them, but disappointment in the universal sacredity of shared drive. This was the core of the lesson life was teaching me. I wasn't lonely, but I was fundamentally alone in the execution of my growth. I didn't resent them for choosing comfort. I just often wished that ambition was contagious, that the ticket booth offered group discounts on velocity. I wish the cards were dealt more equally, so the effort I exerted could be met with reciprocal energy from the people I love the most. I can't do steady, Sam. I explained gently, looking down at the gleaming tracks. Steady feels like standing still, and I know I have more to build. I turned from the bench and walked toward the open door of the carriage. The air inside felt charged, expectant. Before stepping aboard, I paused to look back at the bench. They hadn't moved. They were chatting easily, laughing about some old high school memory. A memory I shared, yet one that felt increasingly distant. And that was a shift. They were memories in motion, fixed points in my history, whereas I felt like a particle accelerating away from the gravity of familiarity. I wasn't mad. There was no betrayal here. My ambition was solely my issue to fund and my journey to take. I stepped into the train, placing the aspiration suitcase neatly on the rack above a plush empty seat. I was the only passenger in the vast car. The realization hit me. I had always hoped they would climb aboard with me. I had held the door open, waiting for them to pack their own bags of drive. But their commitment was to the platform itself, the familiar concrete, the known schedule. A low, resonant bell sounded, signaling departure. The train barely shuddered as it began to move, gliding smoothly away from the illuminated platform. I stared out the window. The light cast by the platform lamps grew smaller, turning Mike and Sam into two distant, golden silhouettes. Sitting serenely on the bench, they waved a casual, friendly gesture that said, "Go get 'em, G. We'll be right here." And as the train gained speed, the surreal scenery outside began to blur. The trees become streaks of green, the light poles merging into a continuous line of glow. The platform vanished entirely, swallowed by darkness. This moment of absolute solitude in the accelerating carriage wasn't frightening, it was clarifying. Growth, I understood then, demanding a focus so sharp it often requires you to eliminate distractions. And sometimes, the dearest people you know become distractions not because they hold you back maliciously, but because their lack of forward motion creates a drag against your own efforts. My journey wasn't antagonistic, it was simply orthogonal. I was moving at a 90-degree angle to their path. I leaned back into the seat, feeling the powerful rhythm of the train beneath me. The interior of the car was quiet, allowing me to hear my own thoughts clearly. This solitude wasn't loneliness. It was the space necessary for construction. I had to build my empire, write my future, and forge the new version of Gerald without the comforting echo of lifelong familiarity. The hopeful tone settled in. The goal wasn't to leave them behind in contempt, but to move forward, so far forward that I might create a new, wider world. A world spacious enough that when I returned to Kalamazoo for visits, I could bring a new perspective and maybe even inspiration, not just stories. I closed my eyes and smiled. The pressure to maintain group solidarity was gone. My loyalty was now solely dedicated to the destination. The conductor, a figure that strangely looked exactly like the future successful version of myself, walked by the car. He paused and just nodded. "How's the ride, Gerald?" he asked gently. "Fast," I replied, opening my eyes. "And quiet. It's supposed to be," he said, his voice deep and warm. "The engine of self-improvement is designed for one passenger. It needs silence to hear where it's going. Enjoy the speed, kid. You earned the ticket." As the train thundered into the darkness, carrying me toward a horizon I hadn't yet defined, I accepted the profound, simple truth. The most important, difficult parts of growing up, the leaps of faith, the hard pivots, the moments of true transformation, are journeys we always beautifully take alone. My heart was full, not of regret for leaving, but anticipation for arriving. Kalamazoo was home, but the rest of the world was waiting, and I was finally moving. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Narrative Mindset Podcast.